OK, let's speak now live to Shadow Resources and Northern Australia Minister Susan McDonald. Minister, thanks for joining us on the show. Let's start with that sort of breaking news from overnight and the decision of the US Supreme Court to rule Donald Trump's trade tariffs illegal. Do you know what the implications for Australian businesses might be?
Well, I haven't had an opportunity to look through that in detail, but certainly we know that Australia is a great trading nation. We've made a great strength out of being a dependable trading partner and a dependable ally. And this is important in our relationship with the US, where we supply, we have great markets in beef, in food, and of course in minerals. So I think this is an important part of the rebalancing of the trade mix for the world. And Australian exporters, both agricultural and mining, and others, will benefit from a more free regime.
How big a bargaining chip are critical minerals for Australia in any further trade negotiations?
Well, it's critically important, and I don't think there's anything else we should be talking about apart from the success of our resources sector, whether that be faster approvals, whether that be reducing their cost of production through lower energy costs. But it is mining that pays the bills, and critical minerals is an essential part of that, both for Australia and for our trading partners and allies like the US. We know that critical minerals will form the basis of new technologies, whether they be in computing, in energy. In fact, pretty well anything that you can think of will require more of our rare earths and more of our critical minerals, and of course, more of our traditional minerals like copper and silver and gold and zinc. And so for all of those reasons, Australia, which has a very proud history of being a very efficient miner, leading the world in technology, it is so important that for Australia, for our finances, we stop this crazy rhetoric that the Albanese Labor government is providing, which is somehow that coal and gas and iron ore, our three big export earners, are somehow a bit old hat, not necessary to the country, and that we will magically be able to convert to a green economy is by 2032, if you look at their Treasury modelling. Now, this is dangerous stuff, Alex, and so it is critically important that we get our mining industry firing, both onshore, and investment confidence return to this nation to allow the multi-billion-dollar projects to once again be housed proudly on Australian shores.
What is the Coalition's energy policy going forward since Angus Taylor was appointed the new Liberal leader?
Well, this is so important because it doesn't matter whether or not you're talking to a butcher in far north Queensland, a manufacturing business down the east coast. Energy is the economy, and the cost of energy and the cost of electricity are the things that mean whether or not small businesses can continue to employ people in their communities and regions, or whether our big investors, our big smelters and concentrators, refineries, whether or not they can afford to stay onshore in Australia. These are the people who employ hundreds of thousands of people across the nation. They support small business in regional and remote communities. They support our defence manufacturing capability. For all of those reasons, our electricity and energy mix is critical. And so I was delighted that one of the first things Angus talked about as the new leader was that Australia will use all of our available resources to generate electricity in a way that is affordable, reliable for Australians, Australians' businesses, Australians' jobs, and Australian prosperity. And that means keeping coal in, keeping gas on, and encouraging the use of those things, in addition to renewables and, of course, uranium.
Susan, just before you go, can I get your comment, if you would, on the Syrian official that appears to have commented overnight that Australia's government has labelled the so-called ISIS brides terrorists and won't let them back into the country? Is that enough for the opposition?
Well, we have to judge the government by its actions, not by its words. under the Albanese government, they have encouraged terrorist organisations. They did Hamas's bidding by recognising Palestine. They failed to stop the display of terrorist flags in marches through the streets of our capital cities over the last couple of years. Their actions will be the judge, not their words. We have to make sure that we do not allow more of these ISIS brides to return back to Australia when they left this country illegally to fight in a war against Australians. I think this is a very clear requirement from all Australians, and now we have to wait and see if Tony Burke is willing to carry forward on those actions, not just the words of Syrian officials.